We better get back, because it'll be dark soon, and they mostly come at night. Mostly.
Welcome to Mostly Horror.
Mostly.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Sean.
And we are back with our second annual Spook'm Scare'm Awards. We're joined for the fourth time in the history of our podcast by Mike Scollins. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to join the Five Timers Club next.
Yeah, it's really funny because you had so episodes 42, 86, and 98. I was actually re-listening to 86, which was last year's Spook'm Scare'm Awards, and you said I'll join you the same time next year, which you are, which is great. But we also had you in the middle when Scream 6, right after Scream 6 came out, and we had you and chatted about it. So it's great to have you back. Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yes, we did see it together.
And we talked about Scream 7 off the air a little bit. Maybe we'll see that together when that comes out sometime in the future. But don't need to talk about that now. Before we get into our awards this year, I do want to ask, we haven't had you on since the strike happened and then ended months after. And I'm curious how things are coming out.
Because I had nothing to do for those.
That is fucked up of us.
Yeah,
I definitely could have found the time.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Would you have wanted to talk about movies during that time, though? Like, would you?
I guess as a member of SAG that is also on strike, you weren't supposed to. I don't know if that extends to movies that you were not. I have no idea what those rules were.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe you're right. I was picketing this podcast.
Yes, yeah. It was hard enough for us to
do our show.
Well, that must have been a nightmare because you have people that actually couldn't promote their movies.
It would basically go ahead, Sean. I keep cutting you off.
Well, no, it's. I was just gonna say, our whole show is, it's about the people that work on these movies. So we're also not trying to sound. Obviously, we don't work with these studios. It's not like we're a part of a union, but we're trying to stand with the guests that we have on the show, while also, we want to talk about their art, but it was just confusing. It was a mess. It was really hard to navigate.
Yeah, it was go watch this movie that's on Netflix. Also, fuck Netflix, but they have this new movie that you should check out.
Also, cancel your Netflix.
Yeah, we wouldn't say Netflix. We would be this movie that is on this thing streaming that we don't want to. Yeah. We're watch it whenever you want. I don't know. We can't push it right now.
It was crazy. As soon as the strike ended, the amount of email responses that we got post that it was I won't say a flood, but things are back rolling now. It's
wants to talk about their projects. They want to be promoting what they have coming out, and it's just you couldn't. It was a rough time for us. It was a rough time for everyone in the industry, but also you guys that need people that are doing press.
Yeah, but we're not being affected as much, so don't worry about us.
Right.
It's we're the lowest on the totem pole. I am curious how things have been just back at late night. I'm assuming you guys just picked up where you left off. I saw the day drinking with Dua Lipa recently was a great bit. Kind of same old, back to work.
Yeah, I mean, I felt lucky to have a job that when the strike ended, we just hit the ground running. There was no all right, so we'll finish out the holidays and then regroup in January or something. It was all right, we had a show the next day. So I was obviously so happy to be going back to work. Still difficult in the way that you guys had difficulties with guests is that the writer's strike ended before the SAG strike did. So we went back to work, but we could not book any actors to talk about their movies. Yeah. So guests is you could have an actor on if they were promoting a book that they wrote, or we had, it's a political talk show. So you could have a politician on or something. But even if they were coming on to promote their book, you couldn't say our next guest from this movie and this movie, because we couldn't mention those movies even if they were there to promote. So it was a weird time, but also it was a weird year. I was just so happy to be back to work and seeing everyone.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
No, that's so good to hear. I'm glad. And luckily since then the SAG strike has been lifted, so that's something where hopefully everything's kind of back to normal. We're seeing it feels like a rush of seeing these new films being promoted now, even the trailers in theaters for right. Dune's finally going to come out 5 months after it was supposed to. I feel like Wonka's coming out under the radar because it just feels like it never got promoted, sort of thing. even though it came out yesterday as we're recording this. Like, yeah, it's just been a weird.
It came out like weeks ago.
Yeah, no, yesterday, but
Off,
yeah, it's just been a weird time. But I'm glad everything is kind of back to normal, even if it's a bit different. But and we're happy again to have you back for the second annual Spook'm Scare'm Awards. So this is something, of course, this is something we did for the first time last year, and we kind of prefaced it by saying, you know, we'll get a bit spoilery for some things. So if you're listening to this and you know you're feeling like
you
you
didn't
haven't
do your
caught
homework
up
this year,
yeah, you get on it or listen to what we're talking about and then watch some more movies. And on top of that, you know, we watch as many as we're able to during the course of the year. We could probably watch more. So you know, if we miss anything, obviously let us know in emails or mean YouTube comments or things of that nature. But you know, this is what we've seen. These are our comments.
Mike, I want to ask really quick before when we ask you to do this with us, do you like? I write down every movie that I saw this year, and then I kind of go through the categories. Do you do that, or do you just kind of pull from? Okay.
We've talked about this before in the podcast, but I use Letterboxd exclusively to log what I watched. Like I don't save a review or anything. So when I got the categories, I just like went back through all the 2023 releases.
Yep.
Yeah.
Picked out the horror ones and then matched it up with the categories.
Nice.
There was one. We'll probably get into it. This one horror movie that I thought was so great that I hope one of you guys have, because I could not fit it into any of the categories, but I loved it so much.
Interesting.
Last year, did we have a category last year that was like best kill?
It was, so we had a category that we swapped out, and we honestly we can add it if we want to. We can add an 11th
do a
category,
last minute,
but we had a best worst thing was our category.
Yeah.
So it wasn't best kill, but it was.
It could have been like
I think
best
it was
kill
swept
fits into that. But,
yeah, I think it was swept by Barbarian Mother's Milk last year, and so that was the category that we had. But yeah, we didn't have best kill in here
because I really wanted to put all of Thanksgiving in for best kill. I had blast watching that movie.
Yes.
But I also like couldn't fit it into any other category. I'm like, well, it wasn't my favorite of the year. I don't think it had the best score of the year.
Yeah, yeah. Thanksgiving is also
one
that
I had watched this year.
Yes, exactly. We can, you know, this can be how we're teeing up the categories, but I think Thanksgiving is also something that I was trying to find its place. It was probably my biggest surprise of the year. It's a film that I did not expect. I didn't think going into a movie called Thanksgiving by Eli Roth, who personally I'm not a big fan of his films. I just wasn't that stoked. I was like, I want to see it, and I enjoyed it. It felt like a new Scream movie to me. And
yeah,
so
I almost was like, best opening scene. I don't know. Yeah. I was like trying real hard to reverse engineer a way to get it in.
But at the end of the day, you know, it was good, but unfortunately, doesn't. Yeah, none of my categories either. But let's kick it off with what you just said, which is the best opening scene. We're gonna have an opening scene on the categories with best opening scene. I feel like I can guess some of these for you guys, but Mike, I would love to know what your best opening scene of this past year was.
I mean, I think you can guess mine. It was absolutely Scream 6.
Yeah.
Which, if I'm being honest, like Scream 6, not in the top half of the franchise for me. I thought the last act kind of fell off a bit, but I mean, we watched it together. You saw how hyped I was after that first opening scene. It's like, if nothing else, it's impressive that they keep finding new ways to do the cold open.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, that's something you haven't done yet. We've never once seen like Ghostface take his mask off in the opening scene. And even like, you know, when Samara Weaving gets killed, they like pause for a bit and you're like, oh, we're going to hit the opening credits. And it's like, no, instead of titles, it just like keeps going. He takes his mask off. You follow him home. It's the first time you've ever, because usually the audience finds out the killer at the same time that the characters do, which is how Scream works. It's a whodunit. And it's the first time we've ever, like, when he passes Jenna Ortega, we're like, oh, we know something she doesn't know. She's talking to a killer right now. And it was such a like nice surprise. It got me so hyped for the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And had a great like Friday the 13th Part 2 homage with the refrigerator.
Yeah.
I was so stoked on that movie.
Yeah.
It's also the other, I think outside of 4, it's the only opening that has its own twist to it. Like Scream 4 gets crazy and that opening has like a number of twists, but yeah, that was the only one that kind of like subverts what they are normally doing, which is just like a kill as an open. I agree, it's a great one.
Specifically seeing, you know, the shot of like where he swipes and usually you would get the scream, whatever, and for that to that moment to continue on and the music to kind of like stop and it's just kind of cold breathing there. Yeah, fantastic. That was also my pick for this year. I don't know if I
and just playing with the expectations of like you see like opens with Samara Weaving, you're like, all right, well then clearly she's like the Drew Barrymore, the Jada Pinkett, like whatever, like the big get stunt casting is. And I was like, no, that's just like half of it. It was so fun.
Yeah, I agree. Is there anything else you have to add, Sean?
Well, I was going to say, do you get two cold open killings right next to each other, and they're both great? Like they both, you know, the alley kill and the kill in the apartment. Plus, we love Samara on the show, obviously. So yeah, 100% was my pick.
They got to mess around with the mise en scène of his apartment to kind of get, you know, their meta winks at the horror genre with the different things he had on his TV and posters on the
last
wall.
Podcast on the left poster.
Yeah, it should have been a mostly horror one, but it's fine. But yeah, outside of that,
we're not definitely there
yet. Mine isn't going to be Scream 6, and I am going to preface this whole awards show, if you will, by saying I'm gonna try to not have Talk to Me as my response for all of these. But Talk to Me was my favorite opening scene. I feel like it perfectly encapsulated what you were going to get for the rest of the film, and as a debut from Raka Raka, setting the stage, being very Australian in that scene, like the character who dies, his name is Doggett, and you're like, oh, I know exactly what's going to be going. Like, I know that this is going to be some crazy Australian shit in this movie. And it's really like a pull no punches opener, which lifts your anxiety, and then, you know, you're able to kind of get into a regular opening of a film. But it really set the stage for what was you know, one of my favorite films of the year, I'll say right now. But yeah, so I was going to say Scream 6, but I think Talk to Me was just a smidge above it in my mind. I don't know if we've talked about Talk to Me. We haven't had you on since it came out, Mike, but any thoughts about that?
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great. I saw it at the Overlook Film Festival in New Orleans. It was the secret screening. So I also went in like, no expectations, hadn't seen a trailer, didn't even know a log line.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it with my pal Matt Angel, who directed and co-wrote the great Wrath of Becky this year.
Nice.
And both of us went in know nothing about the movie, and we were like, oh, like what a blast to watch. What a brutal film that I probably won't see again for a while.
Okay.
But it was one of my favorites of the year.
Yeah.
And not just favorite horror of the year. It was like a favorite film of the year.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. I had to deal with like 6 months because Steve got to see it.
I saw it at South by.
Yeah. You skipped it a bunch. It was like real unfortunate for people.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been for this movie for half a year now.
I came home in March and I was like, Sean, there's a movie coming out in July that's so fucking good.
And I got to see it like a week early. Yeah, like we got to go to a screener, but it was only like a week in advance of its release. But I had to deal with him for months just not shutting up about it. It didn't like oversell it though. I was still stoked, and I didn't watch any trailers or anything. I went in blind other than knowing that Steve was obsessed and couldn't shut up.
But did live up to the hype.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, love it. It'll come up for me later.
Yes, exactly. So. All right. On that note, opening scene is done. Scream 6 in my Talk to Me. I will say we'll mention a couple of these from fan responses. I will say I did not see Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, but that was a couple of people's responses for best opening scene. Yeah. So can't comment on that, but shout out to the people that put that in our Google form. Also, Evil Dead Rise had a number of responses. I feel quite the contrary to that, but don't necessarily need to shit on that movie during this.
Yeah.
By Sean's face, he does as well.
I'll talk about that later too. But I'll just say that I found everyone loved the opening of Evil Dead Rise, and I didn't. I think that I don't know. I was frustrated by a handful of things in that opening alone. I was really confused by some of the visual effects of the head ripping off and on the dock and stuff. And I mean, yeah, the title coming up and the floating above the ocean was cool, but it didn't fix some of my frustrations that had been established like immediately in that movie. So that's what I'll say.
That I don't want to linger too much on it, but there's this good bit. I can't remember the name of the person who made this video, but it's something like when you're watching a movie and you want to be a part of the like cinematic speech, and it's basically like 3 people watching a movie and 2 of them are like, oh, that's a great shot. Another one's like, oh yeah, I love that shot. And then the third friend's like looking at them, looking back at the film, and then just picks a random scene and is like, oh, I like that shot. I like her gray outfit. It's very gray. And that's whenever I think of that scene, I'm like, it's just someone being like, oh, that's a great shot. Cause yeah, it's cool. But anyways,
I think I get what they were trying to do there. I just, I don't know.
Agreed.
That's what I'll say. I don't know.
Agreed.
But, all right.
moving on
Next
to best debut horror film of the year. Mike, what was your favorite debut of the year?
Talk to Me was a debut, right?
Yes.
Okay, then it's that. I originally had Rebirth, which is another film that I saw at the Overlook Film Festival by Laura Moss, and for 2 months kept calling Birth Afterbirth and had to be constantly corrected that that's not what the movie's called. I thought it was such a great like debut film, but I gotta give it to Talk to Me, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's like got to be unanimous.
I forgot that Talk to Me was a debut in this moment, so I am going to mention something else.
Oh, an audible and change mine.
That's a statement to the film itself. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's really quick. Rebirth. You almost had me say Birth After Birth. I caught myself though.
It's the better title. It's clearly what it wants to be.
That's another one that I missed this year. I was trying to cram in some this past week, and I almost threw it on the other day, but ended up hitting some of the other ones I thought I needed to hit. So I like knowing that it has your stamp of approval, and I got to jump into that as well. My pick for debut, I was torn. With both of these, I was kind of confused about release dates. Me and Steve kind of talked about it a second ago. But
wait,
let me know if you
are you hitting Talk to Me on this, or are you choosing something else?
Well, I am choosing something else. I don't want to change it for Talk to Me because I'm going to bring up Talk to Me later. I think my praise for Talk to Me is there. So I don't know how people want to take this as me saying, oh, well, technically it would be Talk to Me, but I'm going to list my second.
We did double picks. Yeah, we did double picks last year.
Yeah.
There's no rules.
I know. I guess I just want to mention Kyle Ball's Skinamarink was going to be was one that I had considered, but I ended up locking in Gabriel Beer Glazen's attachment.
Gabriel Beer
Dude, it's hard. Giesleson.
Giesleson.
Looking at his name, listen, we struggled with it last time. But Gabriel Beer Giesleson. There you go. Who we had on the show and who was awesome. You know, our conversation with Gabriel was fantastic, and I loved Attachment. So I locked him in as my answer for this year. Which Attachment. Mike, I don't know if you ever got to see Attachment.
No, I haven't, which I'm glad to know of it now. I'm gonna put it on my list.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Attachment's a great one. And I honestly didn't realize it came out this year. Because it wasn't on my list for films of this year, but after looking and talking before we started recording, I obviously realized it is. Mine. So I think this is going to be a double. I think Talk to Me it's one of my favorite films of the year, and think it's a great debut. But I do want to also mention, I think in terms of nailing something right off the gate in a year, to your point with Birth Rebirth, in a year where we have 3 different adaptations of the story of Frankenstein. Bomani J. Story's The Angry Black Girl and Her Monster, I thought was wonderful. I thought it was a really good thematic change of the Frankenstein story that we always see. I think that like Poor Things, I love Poor Things, and obviously it's not really horror, but that takes a more I don't want to call it by the book because that movie is very not by the book, but like just the experience of life story of things. I didn't see Birth Rebirth, but Angry Black Girl and Her Monster takes this very racial view of the Frankenstein story, and the way it talks about gun violence and the way that it talks about identity. I thought was wonderful, and Bomani really, both directing and writing it, I thought that he hit a lot of those marks really well off the bat, especially as like an independent filmmaker. So I definitely wanted to mention that here. Again, obviously, Talk to Me being such a great movie off the rip and being their first film. And then them Raka Raka immediately signing on to do like Street Fighter right after that, and like another Talk to Me, like, you know, obviously it's emblematic of how good that film was, but had to mention Bomani and the Angry Black Girl and Her Monster.
Really quick, since you brought it up, Mike, what do you think about a second Talk to Me?
It felt inevitable, just because it was such a hit, and also I'm like, I mean, I guess they deserve the benefit of the doubt, right?
Yeah. That's 100% my mindset.
Oh yeah, no, I'm looking forward to it, and it was like the least surprising announcement. Like, yeah, of course you're doing another one.
Yeah, it was funny because they had spoken about how they, during the filming of this, they basically filmed another film, but they said it was all shot on iPhones, or it was like told all through phones or something along those lines. I don't think that that's what this is. I don't think that's what the sequel is. I think that they were talking about they shot like a prequel that has to do with the opening scene and Doggett's character. So I'm curious if they have like 2 films in their back pocket that are going to be coming out. Regardless,
Interesting.
Yeah, regardless, a very, very strong debut from them. Next on the list, and this one was a toughie for me. Curious about you guys. Best horror score of the year.
It was difficult.
Go ahead.
You start with me?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Newton Brothers, Fall of the House of Usher.
Oh,
I feel like they like consistently knock it out of the park with those scores.
If I would have thought about that, I probably would say the same thing. For some
great,
reason, I was only thinking movies. Wow.
It's not surprising because it's always great that now it's like you've just come to expect a great score from those Mike Flanagan limited series. And they always deliver. It's great.
Yeah, that's like kind of the same thing that we had last year with Trent Reznor and Atticus talking about the score that they did. Yeah, for Bones and All, it's like, yeah, of course it's going to be because every time that they do a score, it's magic.
Like surprising answer, but it was like, no, it was the best.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good one.
Yeah, God, Fall of the House of Usher. We could continue talking for the rest of the episode about that.
I'd be happy
to. It was absolutely amazing. For score, I was torn between 2. Even though I had we obviously talk about this on the show. Me and Steve had a lot of thoughts about Beau is Afraid, but I had written down. I think his name is Bobby Krillick, who did the score for Beau is Afraid. I was torn between him or I ended up locking in Joseph, I think Trapanese is how you say his last name, for No One Will Save You. That movie, I don't know if... I love... Yeah. Yes, it was fantastic. Obviously, that movie has like next to no dialogue, so it's relying entirely on her performance and the score. And I was surprised at how creeped out I was in many moments of that movie, you know, going with pretty straightforward aliens. I mean, they get kind of crazy at certain parts where you got like a praying mantis alien throwing up like gang signs. But I'm gonna give it to Joseph.
Nice.
No One Will Save You.
What was the last name? Trapanese?
Trapanese. I think that's how you. Yeah, that's what it looks like to me.
Really
I'm awful with last names. I apologize to anyone if I'm butchering.
Yeah, I'm not looking at it in front of me, so I can't say whether it's correct or not. So this one was something that I didn't have a lot of films that really hit me when I watched them to be like, oh, and I honestly wasn't even thinking about TV shows, so I didn't think about fall. I will say I recently saw Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's funny because the Newton Brothers also did that. and I recognize that as being something that was like interesting to me. But that's not my choice. That was just a divergence. I want to choose Infinity Pool. The guy who did the Infinity Pool score is Tim Hecker. He hasn't really done a lot of other films, but Infinity Pool, I think the orgy scenes outside of them being insane and off-putting,
the music was beautiful.
Yeah, the music is just it's something else, and when you when you listen to it outside of the film, it's great. Like, it reminds me almost of the what were they called? 106 Point Never, who did the Uncut Gems. It's not as like bright and synth wavy as that is, but it reminded me of that like vibe. So I really, really enjoyed that. So I'm going to put Infinity Pool as my choice. I also want to mention it's not horror, and I think it probably will be nominated for an Oscar, but the score of Poor Things, the new Yorgos Lanthimos film, is just so, it's like nothing that you've heard, but it also fits the film so well. And so I just wanted to throw that out because I fucking love that movie. So Infinity Pool is what I'm locking in. Yeah, you gotta. Fair. I'm very curious what you're gonna think. Did you see Poor Things, Mike?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Oh,
it was a very quick response.
Yeah,
great.
That was so fast.
Great. All right.
Emma Stone is incredible in it.
Yeah,
got you.
The movie was not.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then before we move on from score, I wasn't gonna say Talk to Me because I don't think the whole score in that film is like the best of the year by any means, but the track during the we'll call it the Talk to Me montage plays a song called Le Monde, which is just, it's a really cool like old school carnival-esque song that I think is remixed for this. It's gotten really popular online on like TikTok, and I just think it's wonderful. So I just wanted to give that a little honorable mention there as well. The best use of like a singular song, I think, in that film. So moving on from best score, best monster.
Best
what
monster.
You got, Mike?
This is one I had to go back. I had to go on Wikipedia and be like, did this movie even come out this year? Because it feels like it came out 10 years ago. But I got to give it to Megan.
Fair.
Megan hit the zeitgeist in a way that no other monster has. Like, we have not had a classic, like, campy kind of like, she feels like she could at some point be up there with like Freddy and Jason and Chucky in a way that like we probably had cooler monsters this year.
Mm-hmm.
That movie feels like it came out 1,000 years ago, and I think part of it is because the trailer came out in October of like 2022, so it hit the zeitgeist immediately. There were like Halloween costumes 2 Octobers ago of Megan.
Yeah.
I forgot. I was like, oh no, it actually did come out this year. And Megan blew up. She got like a Halloween Horror Nights house same year the movie came out. It was, I don't know how you can get a bigger monster than that.
The marketing for that movie was crazy. We got to go to a premiere that they did at the theater
Regal,
in Union Square.
Regal Union Square.
Yeah, Regal. And they had all these girls dressed up as Megan walking around terrorizing the crowd, and it was so much fun. But yeah, it feels like it was.
It came out like the second week of January or something. So
yeah.
But I remember like thinking like, oh, this is going to be like so unintentionally campy and funny, and then was like, oh no, it was very intentional. Like they knew how campy they were being and really leaned into it. That I had such a blast watching it.
Yeah.
That's where
I don't think anyone's
curious
the zeitgeist the way that Megan did.
That's fair. Yeah,
100%.
I that makes me curious about the new film Imaginary that's coming out. Another Blumhouse film that feels of the same ilk, and I wonder if it's going to have the same effect. I feel like normally I would see the trailer for that and be like, I don't really know. I probably don't want to see this. But after Megan, I feel like I'm now interested in that sort of Blumhouse film that's being put out. I don't know. Maybe not.
I'm really glad that you brought that up because John Krasinski just released his trailer for If. I don't know if you got to see it. Yeah, but there's multiple imaginary friend, movies coming out right now that are kind of dealing with the concept of like imaginary friends being forgotten.
It's a new he just released it. It's written and directed by John Krasinski and starring Ryan Reynolds, and I can't remember who the girl is in it.
Steve Carell's in it.
He voices someone.
Yeah, it looks great, and it all makes me think of Don't Look Under the Bed. Like, just the idea of imaginary friends being forgotten is just an interesting thing. Really quick though, I wanted you brought up Megan. We just last week we had Luke Hawker on the show, who was a movement coach for Megan.
Oh wow!
And yeah, he's also Krampus in Krampus. Yep, the puppeteer.
weird
and old alumni Jared Kraszewski contributed a lot to the design of Megan. They went with a lot of his. He's a concept artist. So just had to shout out
that's so cool.
two of our.
The Megan choreography is so corny in the best way possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's perfect for what they were doing.
Exactly.
Do you agree with the best monster, or do you have something different? I feel like you have something.
Well, so
different.
I do have different answers. I actually have 3, but I'm just gonna give like some of my.
Can you imagine?
I know, but
said that?
I'm only locking in one, but I like to do little shout outs. Megan is obviously a great pick. I guess when I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking my favorite. I'm not necessarily thinking most impactful. I do think that Megan in an actual award ceremony would probably win. But I guess I want to. To me, and maybe it's because I saw it recently, but the praying mantis aliens and No One Will Save You were absolutely wild. I think that there were some of the creepiest stuff I've seen was throwing up those signs and crawling on the house, and I absolutely loved that. I also so I guess I'm actually locking in. Yeah, that's my locked in answer, but I kind of want to throw a little bone at October Boy from Dark Harvest. I specifically Jack. Because Sawtooth, yeah, they in the book they call him multiple things. I think in the movie they only call him Sawtooth Jack, but in the book it's October Boy for most of it. I read the book right before watching the movie, and while in the movie I think he's a lot of fun, I think conceptually, especially in the book, he's one of the coolest creatures that I've heard of. I just really love the concept for
Did
that.
You see
Mike,
Dark
you don't
Harvest, Mike?
No, I didn't see it.
No, I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah, it's if you watch the movie, I think you'll have some fun with it. The movie's definitely fun, but if you ever get a chance to pick up the book, it's fantastic. So I just wanted to throw a bone there, and I'll leave my other one out. My lock in is gang throwing aliens.
Well, now I'm curious. Just say it, but don't explain it.
Okay.
Well, no, wait
right.
wait till I do mine, because maybe it's mine, because none of those were mine.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you're talking for the third one? Okay, go.
Yeah.
Oh no, you go. You
also,
go first.
Mike, the Dark Harvest is, I think it was straight to streaming, and I don't know if it's on Shudder or not, but it's David Slade, who did Hard Candy and 30 Days of Night. Great. And it's an adaptation of I think like Stoker award-winning novel, essentially. And it's fun.
It's more like a novella. It's really quick.
Yeah, it is short.
I did get to see No One Will Save You in theaters, which was such a treat because it released on Hulu, and I was wondering going in, like, oh, is this movie going to like kind of show its scenes on a big screen because it was made for Hulu? It's like, no, it looked fantastic. It looked so good that it was like such a bummer that this isn't the way that most people got to see the movie.
Yeah. It's funny because we had the same conversation about Prey last year during this award ceremony, but which once a year we have a
thing that it did or did not show its scene.
No, saying, I don't know if, I mean, we didn't see it in theaters. I'm not sure if you did, but we were talking about like wanting to see Prey in theaters and wondering if it had the same effect.
I think it would.
Yeah. Really surprised by your guys' choices. I guess not surprised. They're valid choices. I have to go with the monster of all monsters, Godzilla, as being my best monster. It's not a new monster by any means, but God damn it, is Godzilla still cool?
I thought about it.
I mean, yes. I guess maybe I was locking myself into new monsters. Godzilla's like unimpeachable. Yeah, that's fine.
He's the king of the monsters.
And listen, this isn't a competition, but
but I won.
Yeah, but no, just when I go through the list, it's definitely the one that jumped out at me. Also in -1 specifically the Godzilla is just really cool. It's a cool shift that they did to obviously advance way past what they had. Not way past, but to shift a lot from what they had in Shin Godzilla, and also to kind of compare it to the American Godzilla films that are being made, especially with the fact that we now have the trailers of like Pink Godzilla. I just thought it was so good, and that movie absolutely fucking ruled. So have to choose Godzilla -1 as mine.
I want to say seeing Toho like really return. Obviously, they did Shin, but seeing Toho make another Godzilla movie, and I've heard rumors that they're going to explore, having their Godzilla fight other kaiju in the future, kind of continuing off of -1. That I'm just really excited to see them do other creatures, because their Godzilla looked amazing right now, and I don't know, seeing them do anything else. It can be new ones. I don't care. I just want to see more updated versions on their end, not just on ours.
And for a fraction of the budget. You love when those movies hit. It's like, it looks
crazy.
Great. You need $200 million to make it.
Right. Yeah.
We were I can't remember what movie we were talking about, but we were like, oh, well, they didn't have that much. I think it might have been The Exorcist. It was like, oh, they only had 30 mil to play with. I was like, Godzilla had 15. Come on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that should be the bottom is 15. Look at what Godzilla can do with 15. You can do anything for more than that. All right, breaking up the categories, jumping outside of 2023 films. One of my favorite categories last year was the new to you category, a film that you saw this past year that you may not have seen before, or that you didn't see before. Mike, you mentioned Dismember the Alamo as being the reason for your pick last year. I'm wondering if you attended that this year, if that was also part of your pick, or
I did attend it again this year, and it is my pick for best new to me.
Nice.
What a great way to see, we talked about it last year, but they just curate 4 films. They don't tell you what they're going to be. They're ones that are maybe out of print or a little more rare. One of them this year was Beware Children at Play, which is a trauma film. I had never heard of it. I've obviously seen a million trauma films. But I'm struggling with how to talk about it without spoiling what was the most shocking 20 minutes in a movie I saw this year.
You can spoil it. It's okay. It's an older film.
Okay. It's basically like a Lord of the Flies-esque, Children of the Corn. These kids keep going missing in town, and they're living in the woods. They're cannibals. And when the adults in the town finally suit up and go fight them, they win, and they just slaughter these children in a way that the whole theater was clearly not expecting. It's so funny. These kids are 7, 8, 9-year-old children, and they are just shooting bows and arrows through them, not cutting their heads off with axes. It's the most shocked I was in the theater this year. Not remotely scary, but the audience is howling laughing at this movie.
God,
and it was just I was like, well, that was the price of admission right there. Just that last.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It is so brutal. Everything you're taught, you can't do to a child in a movie.
Yes. Can you say the name again? What was it again?
It's called Beware Children at Play.
Beware Children at Play.
From 1989, it looks like.
I'm going to see it immediately. I also really want to go to this. I forgot that we talked about this Alamo thing. I really want to go 4
Join
films.
me next year, because I'm going to go every year. It's the best.
Let's do it. Absolutely.
They cut in fun trailers of old movies between the films. It's really fun.
Perfect. Yeah, that honestly sounds so fun. I love the idea of going and just having no clue what I'm going to see, and just kind of having a marathon. I'm going to segue off of you. I know I keep doing this. I'm probably going to do it for every answer, but I'm going to do an honorable mention and then my actual pick. But you reminded me of one. This category was the hardest for me because I need to get on Letterboxd. I don't really keep a log of everything that I've seen. So in trying to remember movies that didn't come out this year that I saw, it was really difficult. I was looking for I was hitting going to all of my streaming services, seeing what I could find and watched or continue watching and things like that. But you just reminded me of a movie that is very brutal to kids. In prepping for Exorcist the new Exorcist movie, Exorcist Believer, I watched the entire franchise, and for the first time saw Exorcist: The Beginning with Skarsgård, and that movie is brutal to kids. There is a scene in that movie where a young boy is ripped to part by hyenas, and it shows everything, and it doesn't really like cut away, and it's like a 3-minute thing. And it's one of the most brutal, like he's just mauled and then eventually dragged away off screen, and you find out he died. Like no one saves him. The adults are just being idiots. And I think there's a couple other terrible things. In my notes for it, I wrote, this movie really said "fuck them kids." So
That's
I'm
very
gonna.
close to what I have for my scariest moment in a film when we get to it.
Really? Okay. Perfect. I think I know what your scariest moment is. And I think it might be mine, but we'll come back to it. But the answer I'm actually going to lock in was Dog Soldiers. I saw Dog Soldiers for the first time this year and loved it. I don't know. It's just a great werewolf movie. Did you ever see it?
No, and I love a werewolf movie.
It's
did it come out?
Let me find out the year. I think it came out in the 90s. Oh wow. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
But yeah, it's so much fun.
It's Neil Marshall who did The Descent. So
thank you.
Oh, great.
Thank you for pulling up the info that I should have had ready for my answer. But it was fantastic. Yeah, I watched it a few months ago, based on a recommendation, and had a ton of fun with it. I'm always looking for good werewolf movies, and this delivered.
Love a good werewolf movie that also doesn't say anything about werewolves in it. It specifically says Dog Soldiers, which is
because it's
just good. It's a good name for a movie.
Yeah.
Those are both great. I really want to watch Beware Children at Play very soon. Mine, I have an honorable mention as well. Saw Ginger Snaps for the first time this year. Preparing to talk with Catherine Isabel. That movie obviously rules. But I've talked about this film a number of times, and this is definitely a mostly horror choice. But Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Cure from 1997, which inspired Bong Joon-ho's Memories of Murder, which inspired Zodiac. Cure is so good. It is a perfect like psychological thriller, dark, investigative detective, whatever movie.
Investigative.
Is that not a word? I don't know.
Is it a word?
Detective thriller film.
I don't know.
It's fine. This isn't a Judge Steve's
procedural
day.
Can you say procedural?
No, that's not. Well, that's not right for what we're trying to
no?
say. But anyways,
I thought it was.
No.
Look around.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyways, Cure from 1997. It is just a great film, a great international film. Something that leaves you just thinking after the movie is done. It leaves you uneasy after the movie is done, and doesn't give you a lot of answers, which I love in a film, as long as it's obviously done well. So that is definitely up there. It's one of my new favorites in general. Don't know how I didn't see it before this year. So 1997's Cure is my answer.
Gotta see it.
It's so good. All right. Next on the list, we're going to scariest moment. Okay. And you kind of just teed it up, but I don't know if I know what you were referencing, Mike. So maybe I do. I probably do.
I did allude to it, but I don't know if Sean is right in what it is.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It is it's when the dog got its paws on that poor girl in When Evil Lurks.
Oh, well, close. Okay, yes.
It was just so brutal. It really threw me for a loop. And again, it was like a horrifying thing of like, but she's okay, right?
Yeah.
And like, no, she clearly is not.
Yeah.
I'm laughing now, but I was terrified watching that scene. And I also
the tension building up to that, because it kept the parents are arguing, and it kept cutting back to her with the dog, or the dog and I was like, there's no way that they're about to have this dog maul this girl. And so my stomach is just like going nuts, and I'm like, is this just me? Is this just like my negative Nancy brain prepping this moment. And then, yeah, it happens. But the tension was almost worse than the actual moment for me.
Yes. Like, who's got eyes on this girl?
Yeah.
Please stop fighting for 2 seconds.
Yep.
No
It's
one. That's the answer. No one has.
No one
eyes
does,
on her.
just the dog.
Nope.
Very solid pick.
Yeah.
So scary.
You said you really enjoyed that movie, When Evil Lurks?
Loved
it. Yeah.
It was a hoot. It was my third pick for monster was actually the possessed guy in the bed from that movie. I didn't know if he counted. But yeah, he looked amazing.
Yeah,
he looked so good, so pussy
and he
and
wasted
infected.
they wasted no time showing it either, so you're like, oh, that's what this movie is. Oh.
Yeah.
From the get-go.
Yeah. Yep.
What about you, Sean? Something with kids?
So, well, yes, yeah. For some reason, I thought instead of the mauling that you were referencing, I thought you were leaning into the really staying with a terrible moment and showing everything and going into it. And I thought you were going to talk about the talk to me scene with the eyeball and the beating the shit out of oneself. To me, I think that was the most like intense, brutal thing that I probably saw this year, especially when he grabs his eyeball and starts squeezing on it. I almost had a panic attack. So, and it takes a lot to really hit my guts like that. So obviously got to lock that in. My first time actually picking Talk to Me.
Yeah. But this is another time why we'll also double down on Talk to Me. Not since the head scene in Hereditary have I felt, I think, this sort of energy in my chest in a movie. And I felt if the lady next to me in the Alamo at South by wasn't eating French fries or whatever she was eating, I would have just like sprawled my arms out in reaction. The scene goes longer than you expect it to, and again, it's coming off of the really joyous, almost like drug-induced scene, or it's an extension of that scene, but drug-induced, set to that flowy music, and it is just it lasts way too long. The kid is really young, and I think I mentioned this with like Jenna Ortega in the Scream 5, but like it feels like a young kid. He doesn't feel like an older kid playing a younger kid like some of them do. Like this kid is just getting fucked up to himself, and not only does it happen at the table that he's at, but then they shift and he's by the window, and then you got glass, and then you got the other desk drawer thing, whatever, that he's smashing his head off of. And then it continues later on, again, a different scene, but it continues later on into the movie when he's smashing his head off of the linoleum in the hospital.
Yeah.
And it's just so brutal. And again, just my nerves and my anxiety were so bad as that was happening. And yeah, definitely like kind of set the bar for anything else for me. So gotta lock in Talk to Me. When you started talking about the dog, I thought you were going to talk about the dog part and Talk to Me. It's like, that's not scary. It's just like gross. He's making out with the kid.
That's when I pieced out. I was like, I cannot do this.
Yeah.
I really want to applaud actor, I think Joe Bird, who plays Riley in Talk to Me. I'm assuming, I guess I don't know for sure, but do you think, like, did he do all of that, or do you think they put, it looked like it was him the whole time?
I don't want to applaud his parents allowing him to do that shit. I don't know.
I think he must be.
I don't think there were a lot of stunt actors in that film, as far as I remember looking into it. I know that like Raka Raka's known for their like action and stunt effects and that sort of stuff. So I think that's why when you see that sort of stuff and Talk to Me, I think they really nailed it, because that's like the YouTube world that they come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, in terms of if it was actually him doing it or if it was someone else, obviously in the hospital it's him doing it because he's just hitting his head backwards. But yeah, I'm not sure if there was anybody else.
Sure. It just overall, a lot of the times possession stuff just doesn't do it for me. And I have a hard time seeing through the actors trying to act possessed. And I think there's a lot of cliches in that. But this whole movie, especially Riley's possession, was just really, really good. I was like, that's the fact that you're creeping me out with a possession and just kind of hitting it from this new angle was super impressive. But
yeah,
just had to
and the
say,
special effects makeup in that movie really nailed it.
I mean,
really
obviously
subtle, but
yeah, helps create that realism for me, all the stuff I need. So
yeah. All right, going into our best of the year, we have best international film. Last year we had Speak No Evil, and I had The Innocents. Speak No Evil, which we'll be seeing a remake of later on next year.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike, what do you got for best international film?
I thought I was going to give it to Talk to Me, but it's When Evil Lurks from Argentina.
Fair.
I thought that movie was just like fantastic. And again, like dealt with possession in a different way, because I'm kind of the same, where it's like it's similar to how we were talking about Frankenstein, where it's like we know the framework so well that it's hard to find new ins. Yeah, and that was just a completely different film for me. I loved it.
Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. Super brutal, very different. It was so different than what I expected, just everything that I was hearing online. Like the mood of that movie is so interesting, but I just love that they didn't hold anything back. Like absolutely fucking brutal. So
yeah, I will say I do think people online, just for my personal taste, I think it was crazy hyped online.
It was super
like
hyped.
Someone said it makes Speak No Evil feel like Paw Patrol.
That
I was like, I know.
Yeah,
And so that was like the log line that I kept seeing. Like obviously they didn't use it, but I just kept seeing everyone's like kind of repeating that sentiment. And I was like, God, that's what I was expecting going in. So it didn't really hit that mark for me. But agreed. It did, there's a lot of things where it stepped into places that other specifically domestic horror films probably are too afraid to step into, which is, why we get the good international stuff.
Yeah. I actually I think When Evil Lurks is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with like not really wanting to hear too many opinions about something, even if they're not spoilery, but just hear too many opinions, because it does set a certain expectation. And I will say that I also felt an element of like let down when watching it, because people had put it in the category of Speak No Evil. So that's what I was looking for. But that's not fair to that movie, because that's not what it is. It's a different thing. So I wish that I had gone in, have never hearing anyone make those comparisons and just being able to see it for exactly.
I should never have said that Paw Patrol remark. It was unfair.
Yeah, Mike, how dare you put that out there?
Can you imagine if I was referencing that note and that was actually your comment? Like, even though it was,
that was me. Yeah, he was a banger too.
Oh well.
And I totally get it. Like I get that they're just talking about an element of fucked, but they're completely different moods. And like, I think When Evil Lurks has a bit more fun, where Speak No Evil is much more dry.
No fun at all.
And so
absolutely no fun.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean?
So this one's hard. Mainly because I can't pick like where to place what. I think for international, I'm going to lock in Talk to Me for me. So that I can pick something else for something else. I don't want to I don't want to have Talk to Me just sweep. And I also, that's it. I think other things are deserving of other titles too. So yeah, I'm going to lock in Talk to Me for everything that we've already said. I think it was just brilliant. I think in a lot of ways it's my favorite, like in terms of like the best rewatch value for me of the year. Mm-hmm. I was let down by a handful of things this year, and Talk to Me did not let me down at all.
I didn't really consider Talk to Me in this category because of the fact that it was released by A24 and it didn't have like a separate release. Sure. I mean, it premiered in Australia at like, I think Adelaide or some one of the film festivals in Australia off the bat, but so I didn't consider Talk to Me here, but I do have to consider Godzilla -1. Again, it's just absolutely unparalleled. It's one of my favorite films of the year. If not, it's probably top 2 or 3. I think outside of it just being a great monster movie, it's a phenomenal movie. I think if you remove the Godzilla equation, like Godzilla from it, it is still just a really good movie. And again, we talked about this with Prey. We've talked about Prey a billion times as like a concept this year, but taking this well-known concept or well-known story and moving it to a period, or just like a different genre, like this being a war film, I think it just allows you to reinvent in a number of different ways. I thought Godzilla did that. It was poignant, and Godzilla looks fucking amazing. So has to be Godzilla -1 for me. I'm very, very glad that Toho's back on their Godzilla grind. Too.
Yeah, dude. Also, some of the figures that I've seen coming out for it are so sick and make me want to spend all my money. It's crazy.
Next is best TV series. I feel like we might have some similarities here, but Mike, what was your best TV series, horror TV series?
My favorite was Chucky. The best was Fall of Usher. Right?
Okay.
Fair.
I enjoyed
Fair.
watching Chucky the most. I looked forward to it the most. But Fall of the House of Usher is just like so well made. Everyone in it is so good. Like Flanagan, just banger after banger.
Flanagan, man.
I do reject the premise that anyone would be upset that Carla Gugino kept showing up somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a really nice.
She was
problem
being
to
that
have.
spooky.
We should all be so lucky, but fuck, she's so good in it.
Yeah.
She's great.
I hope she gets the credit she deserves for how good she is in that.
Is the season of Chucky still going as we're recording this? Like, did they have to break?
I think it was because of the strike they couldn't finish it, so they put out 4 in October, and then the second half of the season will be.
Got it. It's
It's a blast. He's in the White House now. It's so fun.
Yeah, I'm not caught up yet. I'm a little bit behind, but I've heard that, and I also recently heard that John Waters is going to be coming to the series as the Good Guy Dolls original creator, and I think that that's fantastic.
And still using the same continuity from when the Child's Play come out, 88, 89 or something like
Yeah.
That in and of itself, that had never had like a hard reset except for that one Aubrey Plaza one that I think was sort of one and done.
Yeah.
Pretty impressive.
It's super impressive. Not many things do that. And plus, didn't we hear that Don Mancini, didn't he say something about there was some article someone had brought up a potential, like, what if there was a Child's Play and Megan crossover, and he said, well, you'll just have to wait and see. And I think
they're both Universal. I'd be shocked if those discussions hadn't
been
They
right.
have to.
I think it could be fun.
Oh, it'd be so fun.
Also, at this point, like, Chucky's a possessed doll. The show's already off the rails. Like, yeah, why not put Megan in?
Yes.
I don't think anyone would be like a purist of like, well, she's from a different universe. Who cares?
No. They'd probably do something like
throw Annabelle in.
Yeah. They'd probably have like a moment or an episode. They wouldn't even make it like a big part of a thing. It would be more like a little nod or an Easter egg or something.
I can't wait till season 4 when it's literally the whole premise is just it's Megan and Chucky
sure,
together.
whatever, man. I'm in. It could be a way to comment on the remake that was done. I don't know.
There's so much there.
Yeah.
Sean, do you have anything to the opposition?
Yeah, well, so
Fall of the House of Usher?
Funny enough, I think that Fall of the House of Usher is so good that it just transcended me. Even like it transcended time. I didn't think about it as something that came out this year. It was I needed Mike to bring it up earlier to even remember it was an option. I was gonna say Yellow Jackets season 2 because I just think that Yellow Jackets is fantastic. But Fall of the House of Usher, absolutely. It's Flanagan can do no wrong. I eagerly await the day that we get him on the show. It has me wanting to reread a ton of Poe. I was a weird little emo kid that went on a Poe craze in like 5th grade. And so just seeing all even just a handful of things that I remembered was fantastic. Also, if we had Best Kill as a category, take a pick from anything that happened, specifically the bed scene when the mirror breaks above and falls. I loved that. Right. Loved that. But also the club scene. So
the club scene, even
the club scene.
The ape wasn't even that crazy, but just that concept is so good.
Yeah.
It's just fun to see like awful people get what's coming to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you're not rooting for anyone to survive. You're like, I cannot wait to see this person die.
Yes. Well, even then because Mike does that while at least for me, I'm excited to see them die, but I also feel like I feel sympathy for every character, even the ones that I don't like. Just like a little bit of sympathy. But
I have to agree. It's it's probably tied for number one for me in terms of all the Flaniverse things that he's created so far.
Yeah.
I always go into a new Flanagan show just being like, I hope he can keep it up. And I think starting from his next thing, I'm just going to be like, yep, excited to see that he's keeping it up. I'm not going to have any sense of doubt. I also
nothing but trust.
It was really weird because I have, and Sean and I haven't really deep dived into the show or talked about it that much, but I have this weird connection to the story The Raven from my dad growing up, that I realized while watching the show that I think that the poem The Raven is my intro to horror, and that's something that I didn't realize until the last. Like, I can recite the opening like stanzas to The Raven because of my dad when I was growing up, and like him trying to teach me how to read and this sort of thing, or that sort of thing. And I didn't think about that until the last episode when whatever his name is Roderick is reciting The Raven. I'm like, holy shit, I know all of these words. So just a crazy experience and thing for me. But again, Midnight Mass was my favorite. I think that this is probably tied with number one for me now. Yeah. And also, I really wanted to choose The Last of Us because I think that show was perfect. And it is, definitely mostly horror and did such justice to the video game. But unfortunately, Fall of House of Usher just took the top spot.
Yeah. I thought Last of Us was last year for some reason. I put that in. Also, I love that most parents read Dr. Seuss books, and your dad was busting out The Raven.
Dude, I can do To Be or Not to Be, and I can do The Raven because of I was like probably 8 years old, and my dad was like, "You should learn how to recite this." If you want a little insight into my growing up. So yeah, Fall of House of Usher, absolutely best TV series. And this won't be last because we have a new category, but let's end the 2023 with best horror film. Mike, it's your turn.
I'm sorry because I keep mentioning this, and I know you guys aren't as big a fan, but it's When Evil Lurks.
It's
best horror film I saw this year.
I definitely enjoyed it. I just think that I had the wrong. I'm honestly waiting to rewatch it when I can get all the other stuff out of my head and approach it just as it is. I did enjoy it. I just thought that it was going to take itself. It kind of played with itself more than I thought. Like, does that make sense? Like it was just a bit more
like a little
goofy and fun. Yeah. I wasn't expecting any fun is all. So I was just caught off by the fun. I was like, why is there fun here? This isn't supposed to be fun.
Did you see it? Did you see it in theaters or on Shudder?
I saw it on Shudder.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why I didn't really like it. I just like Sean and I literally took a trek to go see it in theaters because I heard how good it was, and it must be the difference between expectation and what I actually got. I thought that there was a lot of really cool stuff there. I loved the last act. Especially in the school.
The kid pulling the hair out of his mouth. Oh.
Yeah.
There was a lot of really good stuff there. And again, if a movie is gonna treat kids not well, it's normally gonna, do well for me in the horror genre. But unfortunately, just didn't live up to my expectations. But that's completely fair, and I know that's the tops of a lot of people's lists.
And I hope that we have 3 different answers. I feel like we won't, but it'd be fun.
I don't know if we will, but Sean, you're the deciding factor here. What is your
my best film? I picked Talk to Me for my international, and just overall, I'm picking Godzilla -1 for best film. I think that it hit me emotionally in ways that I haven't been hit in a minute. I think that one could even argue that it's just the best Godzilla movie. I know some people might say blasphemy. I have fun with. I even like Godzilla 98. So I have fun with pretty much all of them. But it just like we talked about, even if you took Godzilla out of that movie, the story and those characters are so compelling, and in so many Godzilla movies, your actual humans are completely, just throwaway things for the kaiju that's happening. And I think they had a good balance of both. Like I didn't leave going, man, I wish that I got more Godzilla necessarily. Not in a bad way, at least. You always want more of him tearing apart a city, but yeah, it was just fantastic. And from that emotional stuff to him blasting that beam and it going off like a nuke in the distance, it was just super cool, super impactful. And yeah, I loved it.
Agreed.
Absolutely loved it.
I probably would have chosen that if you asked me right after seeing it, and I think we talked about it right after seeing it. But that was definitely, I think, a little bit of recency bias. In doing this again, Talk to Me just jumped out for all of these different categories. It's one of my new favorite horror films, I think, just in general. And again, haven't really, Hereditary came out in 2018, and I haven't felt what I felt in Hereditary. I haven't had that replicated until watching Talk to Me earlier this year. So Talk to Me is definitely my choice. I feel like I've said a billion things about it already, but definitely something now where even on rewatches, it still hits me just as hard.
Yeah.
And couldn't be more excited for everything else that Raka is gonna be doing. So we did get three different answers. I wasn't expecting.
I like that we had 3 different answers. That's fun.
Yeah. All right. The new category that I wanted to add this year, because we didn't have this last year, but we had an episode where Sean and I talked about all the films that were coming out the following year, and we still might do that. Maybe it'll be a little quick thing, but I wanted, honestly, Mike, to get your thoughts on this. Is most anticipated. I think I collected a list of all the new horror films that are coming out, and we're being treated to a lot in 2024.
There's a lot,
so,
and
yeah,
if Sean's allowed to pick 2, I'm allowed to pick 2.
Absolutely.
Yeah, do it.
And you know what? I'm gonna pick 2 too, so it's fine.
A week ago, and maybe it still is, I would have said Maxine.
Okay.
I loved X. I love Pearl. I'm just excited to see how that trilogy plays out. But I think now I got to go with is it Lee Wannell? Is that how you say his name?
Lee Wannell.
Wannell?
I think it's Wannell, but I could be wrong.
Wolfman's like maybe
him.
my favorite classic Universal monster. I also thought his Invisible Man was just fucking awesome.
It's great.
It was so good. It was so good.
And also, the Wolfman is going to be Christopher Abbott, who I'm like always happy to see in a movie, and I think is so great. Yes. He was so good in Poor Things. I loved Possessor. Is that what?
I'm not sure.
The Brandon Cronenberg movie. Mm-hmm. And he's fucking awesome in that too. So I think that my answer is Wolfman.
That's a good one. And those are both like Maxine and Wolfman both had obviously press within the past couple of weeks. Did you see the Maxine test screening press that kind of came out?
No, how was it?
So I don't want to, I mean, it talks about the
change my excitement. I don't care if it's negative.
Yeah, so basically it's supposed to be a Giallo kind of reference. The film, not reference, but it's like a Giallo film is kind of what they're leaning into.
That's great. That makes a trilogy out of 3 different horror genres.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
It's super cool. And then
obviously people that actually likes X more than Pearl. I think X is like fucking awesome.
I think I like X more than Pearl.
Yeah, I would agree. I will say Phil from Fangoria was saying that he has a lot of doubts on whether or not he's like everyone, like so many people don't know how to actually like classify Giallo. And he's like, I don't know. We'll see. He's like, I don't think that it's actually going to be a Giallo movie. So
because the audience is mislabeling it, or because Ty West doesn't know what it is? I feel like
I think it was a response it was someone's takeaway from a test screening. So I don't know if it's Ty West saying it specifically, but I feel like if the audience says that, I guess I don't know. Maybe the audience doesn't know.
Yeah,
what it
that's
is,
where
and
I'm
it's
just
a
curious. I'm
misrepresentation,
curious what it's going to be. Is basically what I was trying to say. I'm very curious to see.
Yeah. And also to Wolfman, 100%. I saw that
Yeah.
news a couple days ago. Have you ever seen On the Count of Three?
Oh yes. Wait, Christopher Abbott's in that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
he's so good in everything. And yeah, no shade to Ryan Gosling, but I think that this is a good, maybe like understated actor pick here too. So, Sean, what do you got for most anticipated on the long list?
So I'm going to be
coming
completely honest. I was an absolute idiot because you put that category in and we didn't talk about it. And for whatever reason, my brain was like, you're asking me what the movie I was anticipating the most for this past year was. So
Nope. So that's Evil Dead. Next.
Yeah, it's funny because I mean, I have my answer now that I know what the actual category is, but I'm going to say that I was really excited for Evil Dead and then really let down. But no, it's knowing what the category actually is.
Yep.
I'm kind of confused because I'm curious if any of these dates are still going to be moved around post strikes and stuff. But Nosferatu is supposed to come out this year, yeah,
on Christmas.
So if that's the case, it might be that. But you also reminded me about Wolfman, and I love Lee Winnell. I'm assuming we're saying his name right. The Saw franchise was one of my favorites. I love Dead Silence. I saw Insidious in theaters like 6 times. The first one, I'm a really big fan. Even his what was that weird movie that he just Upgrade, yeah.
Rules.
Yep, Upgrade was a ton of fun. His Invisible Man was absolutely fantastic. So to see him, Wolfman is probably my second favorite Universal monster, but my favorite Universal movie. I love the Creature from the Black Lagoon design, but to see him tackle those, like to go from Invisible Man to a Wolfman, I wonder if he's going to keep them in the same. Like, I'm not saying create his own verse. I don't need a multiverse, but maybe there will be a nod that it's kind of in the same place. Either way, yeah, I'm gonna lock in Nosferatu as of now because I've been excited about that for longer. But Wolfman is an honorable mention for me as well.
Yeah.
If I get to pick 2,
yeah, it's funny because I had
2.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because I actually had 2 for this before we even started saying that, but I'm really excited for Christmas next year because we get Nosferatu, which I think there's probably no better person than Robert Eggers to take on an adaptation of such a niche classic horror film, specifically Nosferatu, than him. And also the first image that came out from it just is enticing. I will say it being Lily Rose Depp as opposed to Anya Taylor-Joy is a bummer. Don't love Lily Rose as much as I have full confidence in Anya Taylor-Joy, but I think it'll still be good.
I think she'll still kill it.
But also coming out on Christmas of next year, again, dates can change, Jordan Peele's 4th project. I don't know if it's going to be a horror film, but it's currently slated for Christmas of next year. Everything else that he's done has been horror or mostly horror. So those 2 films coming out on the same day is going to be insane if that does keep. I can't imagine that like Jordan Peele would move his film because of Nosferatu. Like I don't think Nosferatu is going to make that much noise compared to a new Jordan Peele movie, but yeah.
Nobody said the new Alien.
Romulus?
Is that what it's
I
called?
don't know what to think
Alien
yet.
Romulus. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me while we're sitting here, let's quickly graze through the films that are coming out this year because there's a lot. We have I'm gonna
The
touch
Crow,
on them even if they're small. Yeah, I mean, we got Night Swim coming out at the top of the year. We have Robin Williams' daughter's Zelda Williams, her directorial debut, Lisa Frankenstein, coming out. We have a new Ghostbusters movie. We have The First Omen. We have a new Godzilla Kong movie. We have M. Night Shyamalan's daughter's first movie, The Watchers. We have a Quiet Place movie called A Quiet Place Day 1. We have a new M. Night movie. We have a remake of Speak No Evil, which we just spoke about. Alien Romulus, which is the Fede Alvarez Alien film that for some reason I feel like is straight to Hulu, but it can't. Like, there's no way they're going to do an Alien movie straight to Hulu, right?
No, there's an Alien show on Hulu, right?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
they're doing a show.
Maybe it's both. I don't know.
Yeah. We got Beetlejuice 2, Smile 2, Terrifier 3, Nosferatu, Jordan Peele's new movie Maxine. I don't know if Scream 7 is going to come out still next year, based on everything that's happening, but I know it was slated for next year. Return to Silent Hill, the Radio Silence Untitled Universal Monster movie, the reboot of The Crow. We have Dust Bunny, which is a new horror film directed by Brian Fuller, starring Mads Mikkelsen and Sigourney Weaver. We have a remake of Faces of Death. We have Beck and Woods writing and directing another horror film with Hugh Grant and Sophie Thatcher called Heretic. There's a film called Long Legs coming out from Neon that is Nick Cage and Micah Monroe. Salem's Lot, if that ever gets put out.
Yeah.
The Strangers trilogy. What was that?
I said that's a lot.
Yeah. There's literally so much that's coming out. Like Saw 11, They Follow. There's so much. So definitely a lot to be excited about. That I feel like people you don't even realize unless you put it all together in one list, which I have, and so we're here.
Yeah. There's obviously plenty I'm curious about, but in terms of things that I have the most faith in, Nosferatu and Lee can do no wrong. Everything that's gone wrong with Lee, I think, has been because of other people. So, frankly,
all right.
I'll leave it there.
On that note, that brings us to an end of our second annual Spook'm Scam Awards. Mike, we really appreciate you joining us and telling us why When Evil Lurks is better than we keep saying it is. I'm excited to revisit it because I feel like it's very rare that I am completely opposed to other people's thoughts on a film, or at least I feel like the opposite. So I need to revisit and also beware.
What happens to me often, so maybe you're correct. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I do think in this case you're in the minority, right? People were pretty hyped.
Yeah,
100%.
Yes, I really think that we went in expecting something because of things that we heard, which is dumb on our part, and I think that it messed with
human nature.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, like, I think that if I would have just saw the damn movie, I probably would have enjoyed it even more because I wouldn't have an expectation that wasn't being hit.
Yeah,
I went in looking for something. That's not a no bueno. So
that's all right. We have more time next year to watch more horror films without having expectations. Mike, as always, appreciate the time. If you're not watching Late Night with Seth Meyers, watch it. Mike's one of the writers on the show. It's very funny and a great show. You can send us an email, tell us what you thought about all of our choices, mostlyhorrormovienight@gmail.com. You can send us a message or a DM or comment on one of our posts on Instagram at mostlyhorrorpod, Twitter, TikTok at mostlyhorror. I'm everywhere at Steven is Average. Sean is on all the socials at Hypocrite Inc. or hypocrite.inc. And that is all we got for you. We will catch you next time.
Goodbye.